The longest peace for 3,000 years, Earth had been silent. Not the kind of silence that comes from death, but the deep, peaceful quiet of a world that had finally learned to rest. The Great Wars were just stories now, told by holographic teachers to children who could barely imagine such violence. Cities floated among the clouds, connected by streams of light. Oceans sparkled clean and blue. The air smelled of flowers and rain. Maya Chen stood on the observation deck of New Geneva, watching the sunrise paint the sky in soft colors. As Earth's prime speaker, she had seen many beautiful mornings, but today felt different. Today something was coming. "Prime Speaker," called a voice behind her. It was David, her young assistant, running toward her with excitement and fear mixed in his eyes. "We have a situation," Maya turned slowly. In 3,000 years, Earth hadn't had a single situation that couldn't be solved with a cup of tea and a friendly conversation. "What kind of situation, David?" "Ships, Prime Speaker. Alien ships, hundreds of them, just outside our solar system." The words hung in the air like a strange song. Alien ships. Maya had read about such things in the old history files, back when humans spent their time looking for life among the stars. But that was before the Great Peace, before humanity decided to focus on making Earth perfect instead of conquering space. Maya smiled gently. "How wonderful. We should welcome them." David's face went pale. "Prime Speaker, you don't understand. These aren't friendly visitors. They're sending us messages, challenges. They want to fight us. Fight." The word felt strange and old-fashioned, like talking about using stone tools or living in caves. Maya had to think for a moment to remember what it even meant. When people disagreed on Earth now, they talked. They shared meals. They found solutions that made everyone happy. "Show me," Maya said. They walked through the crystal corridors of New Geneva to the communication center. The room was full of soft blue light and floating screens. On the largest screen, strange symbols appeared and disappeared, accompanied by harsh sounds that hurt to listen to. "Our translation systems are working on it," said Dr. Yuki, the head of communications. Her usually calm face looked worried. "But the basic message is clear. These aliens call themselves the hegemony. They've conquered 12 star systems. Now they want to add Earth to their empire." Maya watched the symbols dance across the screen. "Have they said what happens if we refuse?" Dr. Yuki nodded grimly. "Complete destruction. They'll turn our planet into space dust and move on to the next world." The room fell quiet except for the soft humming of machines. Everyone looked at Maya, waiting to see how Earth's leader would respond to the first threat their world had faced in 3 millennia. Maya was quiet for a long time, thinking. Finally, she smiled. The same warm smile she gave to children and flowers and beautiful sunrises. "Send them a message, Dr. Yuki. Tell them we accept their challenge." Gasps filled the room. David stepped forward, his voice shaking. "Prime Speaker, we don't have weapons. We don't have armies. We haven't fought anyone in 3,000 years. Our biggest conflict last year was deciding what color to paint the new school in Antarctica." Maya's smile didn't fade. "David, do you know why we've had peace for 3,000 years? Because we chose love over war?" "No," Maya said softly. "Because we finally became smart enough to know the difference between strength and violence." She turned to Dr. Yuki. "Tell the hegemony we'll meet them at the edge of our solar system in 1 week." "And David?" "Yes, Prime Speaker. Send messages to all the cities. Let everyone know what's happening. Ask them to get ready for war." David asked. Maya's smile grew wider, and for just a moment, something very old and very dangerous flickered in her eyes. "Ready to remember who we used to be." As news of the alien challenge spread across Earth, something strange began to happen. People didn't panic. They didn't cry or run or hide. Instead, they began to smile. Not the gentle, peaceful smiles they'd worn for centuries, but different smiles. Older smiles. The kind of smiles that wolves wore when they remembered they had teeth. In the museums, dust began to settle off ancient displays. In the deepest archives, lights flickered on for the first time in generations. And in the quiet places where old things slept, something began to wake up. The hegemony had no idea what they had just awakened. They thought they were challenging a world of gentle gardeners and peaceful poets. They had no way of knowing that before humans chose peace, they had been very, very good at war. The week of preparation began, and Earth started to remember. The awakening. The first change happened in the schools. Children across Earth were learning about the challenge when 8-year-old Tommy raised his hand. "Teacher, why did the aliens think we'd be easy to beat?" Ms. Rodriguez, who had taught peaceful conflict resolution for 30 years, paused. She looked at the innocent faces staring back at her and realized she had no answer. For the first time in her life, she felt something she didn't recognize. Later, she would remember it was called anger. "Let's find out," she said, and led her students to the old history section of the library. The same scene played out in 1,000 schools. Teachers who had never seen violence began reading about humanity's past. Students who thought arguments were solved with hugs learned about their ancestors who had conquered continents and tamed oceans. In New Tokyo, 16-year-old Kenji found a file about something called kamikaze. In New London, Sarah discovered records of people called Vikings. In New Cairo, Ahmed learned about desert warriors who had never lost a battle. By the third day, children were asking different questions. Why did we stop fighting? Were we really that scary? Could we do it again? Meanwhile, Maya met with the Earth Council in the crystal chamber beneath New Geneva. 12 leaders from around the world sat in a circle, their faces grave. "The situation is simple," Maya began. "The hegemony has 300 warships. Each one can destroy a city. We have beautiful gardens and very good poetry." Council leader Zhang from the Pacific Islands spoke first. "Our orbital platforms could be converted to weapons, but it would take months." "We don't have months," said Council leader Okafor from Africa. "We have 4 days. What about the old military bases?" asked Council leader Petrov from Northern Europe. "Some of them might still have equipment." Maya shook her head. "All disarmed and turned into museums 3,000 years ago. The weapons were recycled into art projects." The council fell silent. Finally, Council leader Running Bear from North America asked the question they were all thinking. "Prime Speaker, why did you accept their challenge?" "We could have surrendered, lived as their subjects. It's better than being destroyed." Maya stood and walked to the great window that looked out over the peaceful city. Families were having picnics in floating parks. Children played in streams of colored light. Everything was perfect and beautiful and calm. "Tell me," Maya said without turning around, "what's the most dangerous animal on Earth?" "There aren't any dangerous animals anymore," said Council leader Kim from East Asia. "We made sure of that during the Great Peace Project." Maya smiled. "Wrong. The most dangerous animal on Earth is still the same one it's always been. Humans. We just forgot for a while." She turned back to face the council. "The hegemony has studied our radio signals. They know we've been peaceful for 3,000 years. They think that makes us weak. They have no idea what humans were like before we chose to be peaceful." "But we've lost that knowledge," protested Zhang. "Our weapons are gone. Our armies disbanded. Our warriors became teachers and artists." Maya's smile grew sharper. "David, show them file Omega." David, who had been quietly working at a computer terminal, looked up with wide eyes. "Prime Speaker, that file has been sealed since the beginning of the peace. It requires all 12 council members to authorize opening it." "Then let's authorize it," Maya said. One by one, the council members placed their hands on the bioscanners. Ancient security systems hummed to life. Deep beneath the city, in vaults that had been sealed for millennia, locks began to turn. The main screen flickered, showing a simple message. "Emergency protocols activated, downloading human military history, downloading tactical databases, downloading..." The list went on for several minutes. Weapons, strategies, battle plans, the accumulated knowledge of 10,000 years of human warfare, carefully preserved and hidden away. "My God," whispered Okafor. "We kept it all," Maya nodded. "Every battle, every weapon, every trick we ever learned. We didn't throw it away when we chose peace. We just put it to sleep, hoping we'd never need it again." Council leader Running Bear leaned forward. But knowing how to fight and being able to fight are different things. We have no soldiers, no weapons, no ships, don't we? Maya asked. She gestured to David, who brought up another screen showing Earth's orbital stations, floating cities, and transport networks. What if I told you that every transport ship can be converted into a fighter in 6 hours? What if I told you that our mining lasers can cut through battleship armor? What if I told you that every floating city is actually a fortress disguised as a garden? The council stared at the technical specifications scrolling across the screen. Hidden weapon systems, concealed armor plating, emergency military configurations that could be activated with a simple command code. We built all of this during the peace? Asked Zhang. Maya shook her head. We built it during the last war 3,000 years ago. Then we disguised it as peaceful infrastructure and pretended to forget about it. But we never forgot. We just decided not to remember. She turned to address the council directly. Ladies and gentlemen, the hegemony is about to learn something that 12 star systems found out too late. Humans didn't stop being warriors because we forgot how to fight. We stopped being warriors because we became so good at it that we scared ourselves. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of red that suddenly looked less like flowers and more like fire. Across Earth, the awakening continued. In hidden bunkers, old machines hummed to life. In quiet archives, battle plans downloaded into modern computers. And in the hearts of humans who had been peaceful for 3,000 years, something ancient and terrible began to smile. The hegemony had wanted a challenge. They were about to get one they would never forget. The deception. On the 4th day, the aliens came. Their ships were massive black triangles that blotted out the stars. Each one was the size of a city, bristling with weapons and covered in armor that gleamed like dark metal. They moved in perfect formation, 300 vessels of destruction arranged in a pattern that spelled out their dominance of space. The lead ship, larger than all the others, positioned itself at the front. On its hull, symbols glowed in angry red light, the mark of the hegemony. Conquerors of 12 worlds. From the command deck of that mighty ship, Admiral Korax studied the small blue planet hanging in space before him. He was 7 feet tall, covered in scales that shifted from green to black, with 4 arms and eyes like burning coals. Behind him stood his command crew, beings from a dozen conquered species. All serving the hegemony now. Report, Korax commanded, his voice like grinding stone. The planet shows no military response. Admiral, said his tactical officer, a thin being with too many eyes. No weapon systems activated. No ships launching to meet us. They're sending a single small vessel. Korax laughed, a sound like breaking glass. 1 ship to face 300? These humans are even more pathetic than our intelligence suggested. On the main screen, Earth's response appeared. It was a small white ship, no bigger than a hegemony transport, approaching slowly through the void. It looked fragile and peaceful, more like a pleasure craft than a warship. Admiral, said the communications officer, we're receiving a message from the human vessel. Put it on screen. The image changed to show Maya Chen, sitting calmly in what looked like a comfortable living room rather than a command center. She was sipping tea from a delicate cup and smiling as if she were greeting old friends. Greetings, Maya said warmly. I'm Maya Chen, Prime Speaker for Earth. Thank you so much for coming such a long way to visit us. Korax's scales shifted to a darker shade of black, a sign of irritation among his species. You received our challenge, human. We demand your unconditional surrender, or we will reduce your planet to cosmic dust. Maya took another sip of tea. Oh my, that sounds quite serious. Before we discuss such important matters, would you like some refreshments? I have excellent cookies. The entire hegemony command crew stared at the screen in confusion. In 12 conquests, no species had ever offered them cookies. You mock us, Korax growled. Do you not understand what we are? We are the hegemony. We have conquered civilizations that span galaxies. We have weapons that can shatter moons. How impressive, Maya said, and she sounded genuinely pleased. We're always excited to meet accomplished neighbors. Tell me, how many worlds have you conquered? 12 star systems. Hundreds of worlds. Billions of beings now serve the hegemony. Maya nodded appreciatively. Wonderful. We've conquered quite a few ourselves. This caught Korax off guard. You have? But our intelligence shows you've been at peace for 3,000 years. Maya's smile grew slightly wider. Oh yes, we've been very peaceful. We conquered war itself, you see. Much more challenging than conquering planets. The Admiral's tactical officer whispered urgently in his ear. Sir, this doesn't match our data. The humans should be terrified. They have no military, no weapons. This is wrong. Korax studied Maya's calm face. Something about her smile made him uncomfortable, though he couldn't say why. It reminded him of the way predators looked just before they struck. Enough games, human. You will surrender now, or we will demonstrate our power by destroying your moon. Maya set down her teacup. Oh, that would be terribly rude. We're quite fond of our moon. But if you insist on a demonstration... She pressed a button on her armrest. Computer, show our guests the garden. The view screen split, showing both Maya and a new image. A beautiful space station covered in flowers and trees, rotating gently among the stars. It looked like a fairy tale castle made of crystal and light. This is Orbital Platform 7, Maya explained. We use it to grow orchids mostly. The zero gravity makes them bloom in the most wonderful patterns. Korax was losing patience. What does your garden have to do with... He never finished the sentence. The beautiful space station suddenly changed. Panels opened across its surface, revealing rows of cannons that gleamed like silver death. The flower gardens retracted, showing armor plating thick enough to stop nuclear weapons. In 3 seconds, a peaceful garden became a fortress that could have conquered worlds. We have 27 of these scattered around our solar system, Maya said conversationally. Each one is capable of destroying a fleet your size, but we mostly use them for flowers. The Hegemony command crew exchanged nervous glances. This was not in their intelligence reports, Maya continued. And these are our transport ships. New images appeared on screen. Hundreds of small white vessels, identical to Maya's ship, floating peacefully through space near Earth. They looked harmless and civilian. We use them for family trips and moving cargo. Very practical. Maya pressed another button. Computer, show them configuration 7. Every transport ship transformed. Weapon systems emerged from hidden compartments. Armor plating slid into place. Shield generators hummed to life. In moments, Earth's peaceful transport fleet became an armada of warships. We have 3,000 of these, Maya said. Give or take a few hundred. Admiral Korax felt something he hadn't experienced in decades of conquest, uncertainty. This changes nothing. We still outnumber you. Our ships are larger. Our weapons more powerful. Maya tilted her head thoughtfully. Are they? Computer, show Admiral Korax the comparative analysis. Data flowed across the screen. Weapons specifications, armor ratings, tactical assessments. The numbers told a story that made Korax's scales turn pale. The human ships weren't just disguised civilian vessels. They were military craft designed by a species that had spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of war, then spent 3,000 years perfecting the art of hiding that fact. Impossible, Korax whispered. Our intelligence said you were peaceful, weak. You haven't fought a war in millennia. Maya's smile never wavered. Admiral, may I tell you a little story about humans? Without waiting for an answer, she continued. Long ago, we were very good at fighting. So good that we fought wars that lasted centuries. Wars that burned entire continents. Wars that nearly destroyed our own planet. We got so good at war that we realized we had 2 choices. Stop fighting or stop existing. She leaned forward slightly. So we chose to stop fighting. We put away our weapons. We turned our warships into gardens. We converted our battle stations into art galleries. For 3,000 years, we've been the most peaceful species in the galaxy. Korax found himself leaning forward, caught by her words despite himself. But Admiral, Maya said, and for the first time, her smile showed teeth. Being peaceful and being harmless are very different things. We didn't forget how to fight. We just got tired of winning so easily. The bridge of the Hegemony flagship fell silent, except for the hum of machinery. Admiral Korax looked at his tactical displays, recalculating odds that had seemed so certain just minutes ago. Maya stood up from her chair. Now then, about this challenge of yours. We accept, of course, when would be convenient for you. The response Admiral Corax had conquered 12 star systems by being smart, ruthless, and never backing down from a fight. But as he stared at Maya Chen's gentle smile, he felt something crawling up his spine that might have been doubt. "You're bluffing," he said finally. "If you had such weapons, you would have used them to conquer other worlds. You would have built an empire." Maya sat back down and picked up her teacup again. "Admiral, do you know what the hardest thing in the universe is? Neutron star material, self-control." Maya took a delicate sip. "Any species can learn to destroy. It takes real strength to learn when not to." She gestured to something off-screen, and her ship's viewports opened to show the solar system beyond. "Look around you, Admiral. What do you see?" Corax frowned but activated his ship's long-range sensors. The readings that came back made no sense. "This is impossible. Your asteroid belt. It's arranged in patterns." "We moved them," Maya said casually. "About 2,000 years ago. We thought they looked untidy, just floating around randomly." The tactical officer's voice was barely a whisper. "Admiral, to move asteroids requires engineering on a planetary scale. The energy expenditure alone." Maya wasn't finished. "And our outer planets. You'll notice they're in slightly different orbits than they should be naturally. We adjusted them to optimize solar energy collection. Mars used to be closer to the sun, but we moved it out a bit to make room for our solar collection arrays." Corax's 4 hands were shaking now. "You moved planets?" "Just the little ones. Jupiter was too much trouble, so we left it alone, although we did hollow out a few of its moons for storage space." Maya smiled at what seemed to be a fond memory. "We keep our old history files there. Battle plans from our conquering days, weapon designs, that sort of thing." The hegemony admiral turned to his science officer. "Scan those moons, now." The readings that came back were worse than Corax's growing fears. Jupiter's moons weren't natural satellites anymore. They were artificial structures large enough to house entire civilizations. And the energy readings coming from inside them. "Admiral," the science officer's voice cracked, "those aren't storage facilities. They're manufacturing plants, and they're active. Sir, if they're producing weapons at the scale these readings suggest." Maya seemed to hear the conversation through the communication link. "Oh, we fired those up again last week after your challenge arrived. We hadn't used them in so long, we weren't sure they'd still work. But you know what they say, you never forget how to ride a bicycle." She pressed a button, and new images appeared on screen. Inside the hollowed moons, vast factories stretched to the horizon. Automated systems built weapons that gleamed with deadly purpose. Ships rolled off production lines like leaves falling from trees. "We can produce about 1,000 warships per day when we really put our minds to it," Maya said. "More if we skip the comfortable seating and just focus on the exploding parts." Admiral Corax realized he was trapped in a nightmare. Everything the hegemony knew about humans was wrong. They weren't peaceful farmers who had forgotten war. They were sleeping giants who had simply chosen to dream of flowers instead of conquest. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice barely controlled. "Want?" Maya looked genuinely puzzled. "Admiral, we don't want anything from you. You came to us, remember? You challenged us to combat. We're simply accepting. But you could have said no. You could have surrendered." Maya's expression grew thoughtful. "You know, we considered that. But then we realized something important. You've conquered 12 star systems, enslaved entire species, destroyed civilizations that had done nothing to harm you." Her smile faded for the first time in their conversation. "Admiral, there's something you need to understand about humans. We stopped being conquerors not because we lost our taste for fighting, but because we finally understood what we were fighting for. We learned that real strength isn't about taking what belongs to others, it's about protecting what matters to you." She stood up again, and this time there was something different about her posture. Something that reminded Corax of the way apex predators moved. Those 12 systems you conquered, they mattered to someone. Those billions of beings you enslaved, they had families, dreams, hopes for the future. You took all of that away because you could. Maya walked closer to her screen, and Corax found himself stepping back from his own display. "So here's what's going to happen, Admiral. You wanted a challenge? You wanted to see what humans do when threatened? Watch carefully." She pressed a series of buttons on her control panel. Across the solar system, Maya's orbital gardens and transport ships powered up their weapon systems. The hollowed moons of Jupiter opened launch bays that had been sealed for millennia, and from Earth itself something began to rise. "Oh my," Maya said, looking at a display Corax couldn't see. "I'd forgotten we built that." "David, what are the specifications on the planetary defense grid?" David's voice came from off-screen. 12,000 orbital weapons platforms, prime speaker, each one capable of destroying a moon-sized object. They've been disguised as weather satellites for the past 3,000 years. Maya looked back at Corax. "Weather satellites? Isn't that clever? We've been monitoring our temperature and humidity with weapons that could crack planets." The Hegemony Admiral looked at his tactical displays and felt his world crumble. In the space of one conversation, his overwhelming advantage had become a death trap. The humans didn't just have hidden weapons. They had converted their entire solar system into the most powerful fortress in the galaxy, then camouflaged it as a peaceful paradise. "This is impossible," he whispered. "No species could hide this much military power. Our intelligence networks span the galaxy. We would have detected something." Maya's gentle smile returned. "Admiral, what if I told you that your intelligence networks have been feeding you exactly what we wanted you to know for the past 50 years? The blood drained from Corax's face. "You see, we noticed the hegemony expanding in our direction some time ago. We thought it would be rude not to keep an eye on you, so we established some communication channels, made sure you received accurate information about our peaceful nature, our beautiful gardens, our complete lack of military preparation." Maya paused to take another sip of tea. "The information was all quite true, by the way. We are peaceful. We do love gardens. We haven't prepared for war in 3,000 years. Her eyes twinkled with mischief. "We've been prepared for war for 3,000 years. There's a difference, Admiral." Corax realized he was no longer just facing defeat. He was facing annihilation. At the hands of a species that had turned deception into an art form. The smile the moment stretched between the two ships like a taut wire. Admiral Corax stared at Maya Chen, trying to process the impossible situation he found himself in. His mighty fleet, which had crushed 12 star systems, was surrounded by hidden weapons that could turn them all into space dust. "What are your terms?" he asked finally. Maya tilted her head. "Terms? For our surrender. What do you want? Tribute? Territory? Slaves?" Maya looked genuinely confused. "Admiral, I think you misunderstand. We're not accepting your surrender." Corax's scales shifted to a deep purple, the color of fear among his people. "Then, you mean to destroy us? Oh no, that would be terribly wasteful." Maya set down her teacup and clasped her hands together. "You challenged us to combat, remember? We accepted. So let's have our fight." The Hegemony command crew exchanged panicked glances. Their admiral found his voice. But you could simply destroy us now. Why give us a chance to fight back?" Maya's smile grew warm and almost motherly. "Admiral Corax, may I tell you another story about humans?" Without waiting for permission, she continued. 3,000 years ago, when we finally achieved perfect peace, we made a promise. We swore that we would never again use our weapons to conquer or oppress. We would only fight when we had no choice, and only to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. She gestured to displays showing the 12 conquered systems. Those worlds you destroyed, those people you enslaved. They couldn't protect themselves when you came. But we can. Maya stood and walked closer to her camera. "So here's what we're going to do. We're going to fight you. All of you. Right here, right now. And we're going to win." "Impossible," Corax snarled. "Even with your hidden weapons, you're still outnumbered. 300 ships against one," Maya interrupted. The Hegemony bridge fell silent. "I'm sorry," Corax said. "One ship, this one. Just me." Maya gestured around her small, comfortable vessel. "That's all we need." For the first time since the conversation began, Admiral Corax laughed. It was a harsh, bitter sound. "You're insane. One tiny ship against my entire fleet? Even humans can't be that arrogant." Maya's smile never wavered. "Admiral, you're thinking about this wrong. You keep focusing on ships and weapons and numbers, but that's not what this fight is about." She pressed a button and suddenly every screen in the Hegemony fleet showed the same image. Earth, beautiful and blue and peaceful, hanging in the void like a jewel. This fight is about that, Maya said softly. Our home, our children, 3,000 years of peace and art and love and everything that makes life worth living. You came here to take it away from people who never did you any harm. The image changed to show human families having dinner together, children playing in parks, artists creating beautiful sculptures, scientists discovering new wonders, old couples holding hands as they watch sunsets. That's what I'm fighting for, Admiral. Not conquest, not glory, not revenge. Just the right for good people to live their lives in peace. Admiral Corax found himself staring at the images despite himself. In 12 conquests, he had never stopped to think about what the conquered people had lost. He had seen only resources to be claimed, not lives to be destroyed. Maya's voice grew softer, more serious. Do you know what the most dangerous thing in the universe is, Admiral? You told me it was humans. No. It's someone who has something worth protecting and nothing left to lose. Maya's smile turned into something that made Corax's blood run cold. We have everything worth protecting, and if you destroy Earth, we'll have nothing left to lose. She pressed another button. Across the solar system, every hidden weapon powered up. The disguised orbital platforms, the converted civilian ships, the hollow moons full of factories, the 12,000 weather satellites that were actually planet-killer weapons. But Maya's ship remained exactly as it was, a small, peaceful vessel that looked like it could barely survive a strong wind. Last chance, Admiral, Maya said. You can turn around right now and leave. Go home, find a better way to live. We won't follow you. We won't seek revenge. We'll go back to tending our gardens and writing poetry and being peaceful. Corax's tactical officer whispered urgently, Admiral, we should take the offer. These humans are beyond anything we've ever encountered. If we retreat now— No. Corax slammed his fist on the command console. I am Admiral Corax of the Hegemony. I have never retreated from any battle. I will not be intimidated by one small ship and a human who offers me cookies. Maya sighed sadly. I was afraid you'd say that. She pressed a final button on her console. Computer, please send a message to Earth. Tell them the negotiation phase is over. Across the human homeworld, the message was received. In schools, children stopped their lessons and looked up at the sky. In cities, families gathered on rooftops. In the orbital platforms, weapons crews took their positions with grim determination. But something else happened too. Something the hegemony couldn't detect with their sensors. Humans began to smile, not the gentle, peaceful smiles of the past 3,000 years. Not Maya's diplomatic smile or the soft expressions of people who had never known war. These were different smiles. Older smiles. The smiles of a species that had conquered its own violent nature and learned to channel that strength into protection instead of aggression. The smiles of apex predators who had been pretending to be sheep for so long that they'd almost forgotten they had teeth. Maya looked directly into Admiral Corax's eyes through the screen. Admiral, you wanted to see what humans do when challenged. You wanted to test our strength. Her smile was no longer warm or diplomatic. It was sharp as a blade and twice as deadly. Challenge accepted. She cut the communication link. For a moment, space was perfectly quiet. Two fleets faced each other across the void, 300 massive warships of the hegemony against one small, apparently defenseless human vessel. Then Maya Chen, Prime Speaker for Earth, pressed one more button, and the universe learned why humans had spent 3,000 years being peaceful. It wasn't because they'd forgotten how to fight. It was because they'd become so terrifyingly good at it that they'd scared themselves into retirement. The hegemony was about to discover what happened when you woke up the galaxy's most dangerous predators. What happened when you threatened their children? What happened when you challenged Earth itself? The answer was simple. Humans smiled and smiled and smiled. The battle that followed would become legend among the stars. But that's a story for another day. Today, the only thing that mattered was a simple truth that 12 star systems had learned too late. Never challenge a sleeping giant, especially one that dreams of flowers.